Transitioning from sales calls to selling in the chat is totally different. And people think it's complex, but in reality, it's actually not. I was doing sales calls been a while back now, but there's a huge difference. People think the difference lies only in the execution part, like what exactly you are sending in the DMs, or is it your offer dog that does the selling for you or not. But it's a whole lot a different game. Because while I was doing sales call, my energy, the way I was operating, my principles, my values was completely different to how I operate now today. That is, I would love to say it's much more aligned as I only get to work with my soulmate clients. So a lot of things change behind the scenes, starting from who I'm working with, the freedom that I'm having in terms of revenue and time. And it's really important that you have enough time and you love what you do. Because while doing calls, I was busy following up with people, chasing pure prospects every single day, and my energy was just like that. And it was reflecting through my content, the way I operate, the way I show up every day in my world. And that's what you got to consider first before you think of transitioning from calls to DMs. You got to be a totally different person. Okay, I'll talk about that. The topic today, as you can see on the video, is like the four shifts that I had to come across where I started thinking of, okay, sales calls have been enough. I'm not gonna do that anymore. I gotta be only focus on DMs. The only thing that I love right now, because the clients that sell, they sell themselves in this process. It's not you who are chasing the prospect. It's where your prospect chases you. They feel like, okay, this is the right man to work with. How can I get started? If you want those kind of clients, if you want to attract those kind of energy, you got to look at yourself first. That's the first thing that you keep in mind. And if I talk about selling in the DMs, the people think they gotta be using amazing scripts or they gotta be using an amazing offer doc, but in reality, uh, what I find the biggest challenge is people consider selling in DMs as if it's a sales call. It's like you're doing the sales call in the DMs, and that's been the biggest mistake that I see. Instead, what you got to do is you're going to pre-sell your prospects even if you consider selling to that particular person in the chat, because pre-sold prospects are very likely to convert in the DMs because they already know you, trust you, and like you, and they think you are the right person for them. Unless you're selling something for very very low ticket, let's say $9 or $10, something like that, that can be sold easily to cold audience without a perfect rapport, or rather say you don't need pre-sold leads. In that case, you can sell and do the magic with the offer doc itself. But when you're planning to sell high ticket, and when you intend to work with only the right people, aligned clients, you got to make sure that you have a process in place that gets you aligned clients. You won't be able to sell high tickets until that particular person you're dealing with is already pre-sold into your values, your mechanism, your ideas. That matters. So we'll talk about the four shifts. I would rather say a shift that you need to consider even thinking of selling in the chat. So the first one is align with people, not just qualification. And the thing that I find most funny about this is I find coaches, qualifying prospects in the chat as if it's a damn interview. It's a job interview. And that's totally funny. Like people try to find out if the particular prospect belongs from a first world country, do they have money, are they coachable, are they dealing with certain problems that you can help with. I know it matters, of course it matters, but let me be honest that no one tells you that you can qualify someone perfectly and still work with the wrong person, right? Because the people who buy just because they're qualified are not the right ones, because they're the early ones to leave your program. They're the ones who's gonna blame you for everything, and hence you gotta drain your energy. They're the only responsible, to drain your energy, and hence qualification is not equals alignment. Here's the proof in the pudding, right? So you got to consider that. Like if you really want to work with people who is important that they're qualified, of course, but more importantly, you only want to work with people who align with your values and principles, who feels your message, and who is sold into your ideas. Because people think that they need to sell their program first, but it's more important that you sell your big ideas first. Because if people accept your big ideas, your program becomes just the next step for them. So you got to only attract those who feels, yeah, this is the right person for me. So that's the one thing that you keep in mind. And the only way to get them is talk about what you believe in, your values, your principles, as I already mentioned, your big ideas. Talk about what you love, what you like to do, what you refuse to do. And that's when they're gonna get you, they're gonna feel you like, yeah, this person is the right person for me. And that's what you want, right? To work with those kind of people. I call them my soulmate client. Now, shift number two is don't sell to people who are not aware of their problems. Now, in this case, it's like I find coaches out there, who's trying to have conversation with any prospects that they find on the internet. Be it problem aware prospect, be it solution aware prospect, it doesn't matter to them. And that's really, really challenging because if you're just talking to people who don't know, even though they have a problem or not, so I'll call them, let's say, unaware of their problems, it's really, really very difficult for you to do the thing. Because in this case, you got to make three sales, not one. The first sale is where you need to make them aware that they have a problem. That's the difficult one, right? The second sale that you got to make is you need to convince them that if they have a problem, there is already a solution available for them. That's the second sale you got to make. The third one being you are the right person for them to get them that solution. So you have to make three sales instead of one sale. And that's very, very complex because it's very difficult. Just think of it as if you're turning someone from unaware to problem aware, then they gotta be solution aware, then like you aware, like the person aware, and then they they come to a process where they say, okay, I'm gonna buy the product or not. So it's a tough job. You have to transition from each and every step one by one. It takes a lot of time and it's complex. So you don't want to waste your time doing the entire thing in the DM itself, right? So instead, you got to speak to only those who have a problem and they understand they need a solution. So basically, the people who are in block for a while right now. So they are your high quality buyers, not your random person out there who don't even know they have a problem. You have to do all juggle between steps to get them
Charge
there.
me up.
The shift number three is the way you behave, the way you operate, and your actions decide how people perceive you. Okay, so let's imagine you are a prospect, I'm a coach, okay, and you're not my clients yet. So I'm trying to message you in the chat, and let's say we're talking in the chat, right? Now, let's say you ghost me. Maybe I'm going to do a follow up, maybe in a couple of days, maybe once max. Okay. And let's say you ghost me again. In that case, I'll never again respond back. I just leave it up to you. Now, if I am a person just focused on doing sales calls, my mentality, my energy, how I operate would be completely different in that case. So in that case, best belief, I would maybe I would follow up with you every alternate days, and not that too, like let's say multiple times every day, with those messages that you might find in your DMs, like hey, circling back, hey, you there, all those kind of messages. So it's really important to think of yourself, how you want to operate every day, what kind of energy you want to attract, and how that's what reflects, how you show up every day, because that's responsible in order to get a like that's how people perceive you. If you want to attract the pre-sold clients to your world, you got to be like that person in the first place, right? If you're the one who's always chasing, always looking for ways to start a conversation or restrike a conversation with your prospects, your best belief your prospects will always try to run away from you. They'll not come to you. So here we are dealing with pre-sold leads. We're talking about pre-sold leads who are always coming towards us, like we being the magnetic energy attracting them towards us. So you got to look at your actions and think how you're going to operate and show up every day in your business. Unfortunately, I find the battery died in between and I got to record the last point once again. And I was talking about the last shift. The fourth shift in this case is stop taking no personally. Because I'm sure this happened with you multiple times, that when you send someone a message, they don't respond, they ghost you, or maybe sometimes you send them your offer in the DM and they tell you like, okay, I got to think about it, I need to talk to my spouse, those kind of objections. And that's when people believe, or they think, the problem is with me. They believe, have I said anything wrong, or Did they come to know, did they find something about me that they don't like? Or maybe I was too expensive. Am I too expensive for them? So you have those questions in your mind when you get those rejections, and that's completely no wrong. Okay, because people who are rejecting you in this case are not rejecting you, to be honest. They're rejecting themselves. What I mean by that is, when they say no to you, don't take that personally, and try to detach yourself from it, because they're saying no here because, number one, they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves in showing up every day to do the hard work that needs to be done every day. That's number two. And number three, they don't trust themselves, to be honest. So you don't want to work with those people, because they unfortunately gonna, if they join your program because of your crazy guarantees or the amazing promise that you deliver on your sales call or in the way you sell it, they are most likely to leave early and blame you, and that's gonna affect your energy. You don't want to do that. Hence, if you're taking these things personally, uh, you have those things running inside you. You have those hesitations in you, and people looking at you will be able to understand that. Maybe the next person you should be talking to, maybe that person was the right person for you. Maybe that person was your soulmate to you. I would rather say soulmate clients to you. Uh, in that case, he would be happy to work with you, but looking at your energy, he would feel, or she would feel, oh, there's something wrong in this person. Looking at you, they will be able to identify that. So never ever try to take those things personally, because what I find is, when coaches take those things personally, they try to become pleasers. What I mean by pleasers is, they try to be nice, they try to be soft, they forget about uh, sharing their own opinion. They rather say yes to whatever the prospect say, they rather say no to whatever the prospect say. They try to please the prospect, make everything amazing and smooth so that prospects say yes and they can get a sale. But unfortunately, prospects never buys from good people. Prospects always buy from the clearest person out there in the room. So if you're very clear about what you say, if you're very clear exactly what you want them to know about your program, that does the selling. So again, just to repeat, detach your self-worth from this, I would say, false no's that you get, the false rejections that you get. So remember one thing: when you try to please those people, you try to kind of convince them like you are the best person for them. And don't do that. They turn out to be the wrong ones, the wrong prospects for you. So never ever try to convince people, rather become magnetically attractive to the right ones. So a quick reminder, uh, don't care about these no's, because it affects you, and you don't care or bother. You shouldn't be bothered to work with people who say no to you. You rather would love to work with those people who say yes to you. And again, as I mentioned, pre-selling is an important part that you have to take care. Even if you think about selling the DMs, that's a particular thing that we're going to talk about in a separate video. But just remember one thing, they're kind of a summary for you. When you're trying to please people, say yes to whatever they say, whatever they want. You're trying to convince them in a manner which you are not aware of, but they could easily look at it and understand it. So don't try to convince, because if you're trying to convince them, you're becoming a commodity in this case. So instead, the less you convince, the more powerfully attractive you become. So attract them with your beliefs, with your power, with your ideas and your philosophy. That's when you're going to find those right people coming towards you. So these are the four steps that you have to keep in mind every time you think about start selling the DMs, I would rather say. So don't worry about the offer doc that you're using right now to sell in the DMs. Don't worry about the kind of conversation you're having up front before you think of sending them the payment link. So it starts with pre-selling, and the pre-selling starts with your content. So look at your content as if it's where people find your content is just a marketing and sales a different aspect. Look at it, don't look at it like that. Instead, your selling starts from your content. So start pre-selling prospects from your content, and then keep these four shifts in mind. So selling the DMs seems non-negotiable, easy, less pushy, and you only get to work with your soulmate clients.